The chains that bind us to others are often forged in the shadows of our own unresolved emotions. These words from Jung remind us of our complex attachments to others. Have you ever felt so emotionally entangled with someone that their moods dictated yours? Their absence created a void within you? Their approval became your oxygen? This emotional fusion, what Jung might call an unconscious identification, can leave us vulnerable, depleted, and disconnected from our true selves. Today, we'll explore how to emotionally detach from someone through the wisdom of Carl Jung's psychological framework. Not to build walls, but to cultivate healthy boundaries and rediscover your authentic self. By the end of our journey together, you'll understand why certain relationships consume you and discover practical tools to reclaim your emotional sovereignty. Let's begin this inner pilgrimage toward wholeness, toward what Jung called individuation. The concept of emotional detachment through Jung's lens isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. Rather, it's about psychological differentiation, recognizing where you end and another person begins. Jung believed many relationships suffer from projection, unconsciously attributing our own repressed qualities, desires, and fears onto others. We become attached not to the real person, but to our projected image. When we're emotionally enmeshed, we've often projected our inner feminine or masculine energies, the anima or animus, onto another. We become dependent because we see in them what we've disowned in ourselves. Consider the mother who lives through her child's achievements, or the lover who feels incomplete without their partner. These are projections seeking wholeness outside oneself. Ask yourself quietly, what qualities am I seeking in this person that I've denied in myself? Jung would suggest that genuine detachment requires withdrawing these projections. It means recognizing that the beauty, strength, or wisdom you adore in another exists within you too. This process mirrors what alchemists called the separatio, the necessary separation of elements before transformation can occur. Your attachments reveal what needs integration within you. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's close collaborator, observed that the person we cannot stand to be separated from is precisely the person from whom separation is most needed for growth. Emotional detachment involves recognizing the archetypal patterns at play. Is this person activating your inner child? Your wise elder? Understanding these patterns helps loosen their grip. Imagine yourself as a garden with many plants. Some relationships are like invasive vines, entwining so tightly they suffocate your own growth. Detachment is mindful pruning, creating space to flourish. Perhaps you're attached to someone who mirrors your unhealed wounds. The mystic Rumi wrote, "The wound is where the light enters." Your attachment may be guiding you toward inner healing. When we cling to others, we often fear facing our own inner emptiness, what Jung called confrontation with the unconscious. Yet this confrontation is the gateway to authenticity. Take a moment to feel into this truth. No other person can complete you. The sense of completion you seek through them is your own soul calling you home to yourself. Detachment isn't abandonment of care, but transcendence of dependency. It's moving from emotional fusion to conscious relation, from instinctual reaction to intentional connection. The symbol of healthy detachment might be two trees growing side by side, roots separate, branches occasionally touching in the wind, neither dependent on the other for survival. Why do we become so emotionally entangled that detachment feels impossible? Jung would point to the shadow, those disowned aspects of ourselves that we unconsciously seek in others. When we haven't integrated our shadow elements, we project them outward. The intensity of our emotional attachment often correlates with the power of these unconscious projections. The price of this projection is high. We become emotional hostages, giving others power over our well-being. Our mood, self-worth, and identity become externally determined. James Hollis, Jungian analyst, notes, "We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Our attachments reveal where we've abandoned ourselves." Consider how attachment distorts perception. The person becomes idealized or demonized, godlike in their power over us. Jung called this inflation, attributing divine qualities to human beings. Reflect for a moment on how your emotional entanglement might be serving you. Does it distract from facing yourself? Does it fulfill an unmet childhood need? The consequences extend beyond emotional suffering. Unhealthy attachment can manifest as physical symptoms, what Jung recognized as the body expressing what consciousness refuses to acknowledge. One client described her obsessive attachment as living in someone else's weather system. Her emotional climate was entirely determined by another's moods and actions. This fusion blurs boundaries between self and other. You may absorb their emotions, take responsibility for their happiness, or lose your sense of separate identity. Notice how attached relationships often recreate childhood dynamics. If your needs were conditional growing up, you might attach to those who recreate this familiar pattern. When we can't detach, we often experience what Jung called possession by an autonomous complex, an emotional pattern that overtakes our conscious will. Imagine your psyche as a kingdom. Unhealthy attachment is like giving someone else the throne, while you become a subject in your own inner realm. The paradox of attachment is that it often masquerades as love. Yet true love enhances freedom, while pathological attachment diminishes it. Ask yourself with compassion, what am I afraid would happen if I detached from this person? What identity would I lose? What emotions would I have to face? You'll observe that where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, their love is lacking. Attachment driven by need differs fundamentally from love. The path forward isn't suppression of feelings, but transformation. Like the alchemical process of turning lead into gold, emotional suffering becomes the material for your growth. How do we begin this alchemical work of detachment? Jung emphasized that psychological freedom requires conscious recognition of our projections and patient inner work. Start by observing your thoughts about this person without judgment. Notice when you attribute your happiness, worth, or completeness to them. This awareness itself begins the detachment process. Reclaiming projection requires asking, what qualities am I seeing in them that belong to me? If their strength captivates you, how might you cultivate that strength within yourself? Jung would recommend active imagination, a meditative dialogue with the internal images this person evokes. Speak to your inner attachment as if it were a character in your dream. When emotions overwhelm, try Jung's practice of objectification. Write your feelings in a journal, draw them, or give them symbolic form. This creates psychological distance. Remember that detachment is gradual. Jungian analyst Robert Johnson compared it to a snake shedding its skin. It happens in its own time, layer by layer. The paradox of emotional freedom is that it requires feeling our feelings completely. Detachment comes not from denial, but from fully experiencing and integrating our emotions. Create a ritual that symbolizes your commitment to reclaiming your projections. Light a candle, write a letter you don't send, or create art that expresses your intention. Buddhist psychologist Jack Kornfield offers a complementary practice. May I see the independent nature of all things and be free from attachment and clinging. Healthy boundaries are essential for detachment. Consider where you've merged your identity, resources, or responsibilities with theirs. Begin establishing clear separations. Practice the art of containment, holding your emotions within yourself rather than requiring another's response. This builds the inner vessel needed for transformation. Marion Woodman, Jungian analyst, suggests working with the body. The body is the best friend you'll ever have. Start listening to it instead of your compulsions. When attachment anxiety arises, return to your breath and body. Feel your feet on the ground. This embodiment interrupts the mental spirals that feed unhealthy attachment. Cultivate relationships that mirror wholeness rather than dependency. Notice those who relate to you without enmeshment, who respect boundaries while maintaining connection. Consider this practice. Each time you think of the person, redirect that energy towards self-development. Let your attachment become fuel for your individuation journey. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means caring from a centered place, what Jung might call relating from the self rather than the ego. Jung believed synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, often guide our psychological development. Notice the signs and symbols appearing in your life as you practice detachment. Remember that emotional patterns formed over years require patience to transform. Honor small victories. Celebrate moments of autonomy, however brief. The goal isn't perfection but progress, moving from unconscious possession toward conscious relationship, both with yourself and others. As our exploration comes to a close, remember that emotional detachment in the Jungian sense is ultimately about becoming whole. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself projected onto others. This journey isn't about escaping feelings, but transforming your relationship to them. It's about loving from fullness rather than need, connecting from choice rather than compulsion. The emotional freedom you seek isn't found in the absence of others, but in the presence of your authentic self. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your attachment has been a teacher all along, showing you where healing is needed, where integration awaits, where your soul seeks wholeness. Today, I invite you to take one small step toward emotional sovereignty. Perhaps it's simply noticing a projection, setting a boundary, or spending time in self-reflection. Remember that in the alchemical vessel of your consciousness, even the lead of painful attachment can be transformed into the gold of wisdom and authentic connection. May you walk the path of individuation with courage and compassion, reclaiming the scattered parts of your psyche on your journey toward becoming fully yourself.